Hello, Jermaine here, and in this video we're going to be looking at how we can talk to a MongoDB database by using the Mongo Dart package. So as described here, Mongo Dart is a MongoDB driver which has been written in Dart. So it gives us a couple of classes and methods via which we can talk to a MongoDB database. So I am going to be going through using this package, connecting to a Mongo database and perform some CRUD operations on it. Let's get started. If you haven't installed MongoDB already, you can go to the MongoDB website, specifically this URL here, and you'll be presented with 3 different options for installing MongoDB. So select whichever one reflects your operating system. In my case, I clicked on Mac OS and I went through the instructions here. And after that's done, I copied this command to run a MongoDB server, which then allows me to connect to the database by running the Mongo command. I would encourage you to follow along with me while I go through this example. I've got an initial commit containing the base files and folders on my GitHub page at this location. So if you come to this GitHub URL and you pull in this repository, just make sure that you've checked out the starter branch, because that's where you want to start from. The master branch will have the final solution once I've uploaded it. So at this point, it will be a good idea to pause this video and quickly pull this down and then come back to the video to resume. Alright, so assuming that you've pulled down this project, what you need to do is essentially run the pubget command in your terminal, which will update your dependencies, including the installation of the Mongo Dart driver. And once you've done all of that, then we're ready to begin. So open the main.dart folder, get rid of this print statement. And before we connect to our MongoDB database, we need to create a database and populate the database with some data. Looking at the root directory of the project, you will find that there is a people.json file. Now this contains a list of auto-generated JSON entries containing basic person information. Now all of this is auto-generated. If you want to know where I got this from, stick with me to the end of the video and I'll show you exactly how you can generate these yourself, all for free. So at this point, we're going to connect to our MongoDB database by running the Mongo command that will log us in, and then we'll create a database. So at the moment, running showDBs shows these databases that are created by default, but then we want to create our own database. I'll call it test, and then in this database I'll create a collection by using the DB variable, which is a reference to the database that has been created, and then I'll invoke the create collection method. I'll call this people, and that gets created, and then I'll exit. So at this point, what I'll do is upload this JSON file into our people collection. So if you come to the README markdown file, there is a command that we can use, which is the Mongo import executable. This comes when you install MongoDB on your system. So essentially we're gonna run this full command in here. So Mongo import, and we need to pass the JSON array flag and the name of our database, which we call test, the name of our collection we want to populate, which we call people, and then the JSON file to use, which is our people.json. Okay, that seems to be successful. Just to check that we've got data there, we can connect to our database again and then use test. We can view our collections by running show collections with an S, shows people, and then to list the entries in our collection will be db.people, the name of our collection, and then run the find method, passing an empty object, which shows us all our entries. I think you should be able to do it without passing in the empty object. Yep, that does the same thing. Okay, so now that we've confirmed that we've got that here, we'll exit the database, close this down, and then I'll come back to the main.dart file. And before we connect to our MongoDB database, let's just make sure that we import the package, which is MongoDart. So now we're able to connect to our database by creating a database connection. The type is DB, call the variable DB, and then the protocol is MongoDB. And we're connecting to localhost 27017, that's the default port, and then our database, which we call test. So once we've set our connection, we now need to open a connection to the database. So I'll use a sync await syntax, which is easier to read, and then we'll await db dot, and then we'll call the open method. So this would now connect us to our database. So just to test this is working, I'll just print out connected to database. If it doesn't connect, it should throw us an error. Pull this down slightly, and let's run this file. Okay, there we go, connected to database. Okay, so that's working for us. And right now what we need is a reference to our people collection. So after this print statement, let's cancel that. After this print statement, we're going to create a DB collection, which is the class which essentially represents our collection. And we'll call DB collection and the name of our collection, which is people. Then afterwards, I'm going to put some to-do blocks just so that we know what to accomplish in this video. So the first to-do item we'll look at is figure out how we can read people from our collection and output the result. So the way we do that is I create a people variable, and then we use await, and then our collection, and call the find method, then use toList, and I'll print that out. So let's test this out now. Okay, and that gives us a list of people. Right, you would have noticed that the connection still remains after the query returns our result, which is because just as we open the database, we need to close the database. So if I run this again, it should give us the result, and then the process should exit. And also, aside from pulling in the full list of people, we can make specific queries. So if I create people again, then I call the find method. As usual, in here you can pass in, you can essentially build a selector which will help refine exactly what you're searching for. So we get a top level function called where, which is a selector builder, and then it gives you a list of all these methods you can invoke. So for instance, we can find where the field name, first name is equal to, let's say, Calypso, and then return that out. So let's try that. So that returns one result whereby the first name is set to Calypso. Of course, there are other methods we can use, like for instance, we can use the match method, and then what match does is it checks to ensure that the first name contains the set of characters. So I can simply just change this to B, for instance, and then if I run this again, it returns all entries that I've got B in the first name. We can limit the amount of results that are returned when using the find method by calling limit, and then we'll limit to 5. So this should just return us a list of 5 entries. Aside from returning a collection, you can also return a single item from the collection. So the method would be find one, and that accepts a selector. So we use the where selector builder, and then we can match where the first name contains a B, and then we can print that out. And this is the single match that gets returned. Also, we're able to chain our queries. So using match, we can also do something like and where, and using the GT method, which stands for greater than, and we want an ID which is greater than 40, for instance. So if I save this and run again, the ID here is 32. So we should get one with an ID greater than 40, which gives us 66 in the first name as well. And of course, instead of doing this, we can simplify this a lot more by doing find one where we match the first name containing B, and then directly afterwards we can call the greater than method ID over greater than 40, which invoking this should give us the same entry, ID of 66. All right. And also, interestingly, with the queries, we can pass in JavaScript expressions. So you can call the JS query method, which takes in JavaScript code. So in here, I can return this dot first name that starts with the letter B. And when I invoke this, this should give us an entry where the first name begins with a B. Now, the reason why we're able to pass in JavaScript expressions is because the language that MongoDB uses is JavaScript. So MongoDB embeds essentially a JavaScript VM, which allows us to write these JavaScript-based queries. And of course, we can extend this query by doing something along the lines of this.id greater than 40. So if I invoke this, yep, it gives us 66 and so on and so forth. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's comment this out and let's look at how we can add a new person. We can use the save method on our collection to add a new entry to our database. So I'll call the save method, I'll create a map object and I'll give it some data. And I'll just come to this file and copy and paste in here. And then after that, I'll just print to the console. Okay, so let's invoke this. Now this should add a new entry to our database, and if we log into our database, we can take a look. So I'll search in my collection and find where the ID is 101, and I believe it's the find one method. Sorry, I am referencing the wrong collection. Should be people. And there we go. Okay, so now let's look at how we can make an update to the item we just added. And the way we'll do that is by invoking the update method. And we need to pass it a selector, which we need to essentially make a query. So we want to find the item we want to update, so where the ID is 101 and it's a comma. And then once we found that, we pass in a map containing our updates. So if you look at the MongoDB documentation, you can't just make the updates you want to make there directly, because doing this would replace the whole of that with this object. So what we want to do is by using the set operator. So that looks like that, set. And of course in Dart, string interpolation looks like this. So you want to add an R before the string, which in Dart it means it's a raw string, because we're passing this to our MongoDB driver. So we'll use the set operator, and then we'll give the object, we'll create a map containing the updates we want to make. So let's say gender male, for instance. So if I save this, so what this should do is make an update to our database and update this field to that. And then I will print updated person, and just to ensure that our update worked, I'll query this item from the database. So essentially I'll copy this and paste this here. Okay, let's run this file. Okay, brilliant. So querying it is made our update here. So lastly, what we need to do is to look at how we can delete a person from the database. And the way we do that is by invoking the remove method. And this remove method takes in the item that we want to remove. So we need to query that item, which is that one. And then once that's done, to confirm that it's removed, calling this again should return null essentially. So let's try that out. And yeah, there we go. Gives us null. Alright, so I would encourage you to look at the API for this. But as far as CRUD operations go, these methods are pretty straightforward. So just to recap, if you wish to read, use the find method. Optionally, you can use the find one method if you want exactly one entry, or you can call the find method and limit it to one, but essentially this is much linear. And if you wish to create a new item, you call the save method and then pass in the document you're storing. If you wish to make updates to the database, you can invoke the update method. And then of course, if you wish to delete, you can call the remove method. I would recommend looking at the API for the Mongo Dart package, which gives you a lot more information on what the methods you can call. So if you follow this path and then you look for DB collection, this gives you a list of all the methods you can invoke, including the arguments for each and every one of them. All right, so I'm gonna run this one more time. Save this full file. And then, yeah, there we go. Everything seems to be working. I would encourage you to just take some time and play about with this so that you understand it a bit more. If it makes sense already, then that's good to hear. If you've got any questions, do let me know down in the comments below. But I'm going to round up here. This brings me to the end of the video, and I hope you learned something different today. I hope this was informative, and if you really like these videos, do let me know down in the comments below, and also do hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon so that you're updated when new videos are released. Thank you. Almost forgot about this. So this is the tool that I use to generate the person JSON data. It's a website called MongoDB.com, which allows you to generate realistic looking data. So you can add various fields, and then you can select the type of field it is, and then you get this list of options. It's quite a comprehensive list. What I did was I just kept the defaults and limited the rows to 100, and I selected the format JSON. Of course, you can preview the results should you wish, or effectively you can go ahead and download the JSON data. Anyway, give it a look. It's MongoDB.com.